Welcome back, everyone. This is Matt, and in part one of this lesson, we focused mainly on systemd services, and now in part two, we're going to cover targets. So targets, or target units, are used to link a group of other units together to describe a desired system state. So you can actually kind of think of this as your end goal. So this is the target that you're aiming at. And some of the units that are getting grouped together by a target may be services, or even other targets with their own groups and services. And just to show you a little more what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and open up the multi-user target, which is our default target. And that can be found in user lib systemd system and then multi-user target. All right, so you're going to notice that this unit file is going to only have one section, that unit section. And it's not going to have the type specific section or the install section. And then under unit, it's going to give us description. So this is the multi-user system. It's going to show us the documentation. And then you're going to see a directive called requires. And what this is saying is that for the multi-user target to run, it's going to require the basic target to run. And the multi-user target is not going to run unless the basic target starts first. And then next we have conflicts, and that's going to be for the rescue service or the rescue target. So the conflicts directive is saying if the rescue service or the rescue target is running, then the multi-user target cannot run, and that works both ways. And then after is saying that the multi-user target is going to run after the basic target and the rescue service or rescue target if they run. And then we have a really important directive here, which is allow isolate equals yes. And this means that the systemctl isolate command can be run for this target. And when that is run, it means that it's going to start this target and all of its dependencies, and then it's going to stop all others. All right, so let's go ahead and back out of this file. All right, so in addition to the dependencies that are mentioned in the unit file, a target can also have a .once directory that's going to link to units that will be started along with the target. And we actually already saw an example of this when we were enabling and disabling services. So if we do a listing on Etsy, systemd, system, and then multi-user target once, we're going to see a bunch of symlinks for various unit files that are going to be started along with our multi-user targets. And just like we did with services, we can also list our target files by running systemctl list unit files and then specifying the type, which is target. And this is probably a good time to talk about run levels in systemd. Well, systemd doesn't really have run levels, and that's because it's using targets in order to define the system state. However, as it is with most things in Linux, it does try to do its best to allow the quote-unquote old way of doing things to still work on newer, more modern versions, at least to a specific point. So if we scroll down just a little bit, we're actually going to see targets created for run levels 0 through 6. And as you can see, run level 2, 3, and 4 are enabled, and 0, 1, and 6 are disabled. And that's really just a means of trying to be backwards compatible. And like I said, the old run levels have been replaced with targets. So what you're going to notice, if we search, is there's going to be a power off target, which is very similar to run level 0. We also have a rescue target, which is going to correspond with run level 1. The multi-user target, which we set as our default target currently, is going to correlate with run levels 2 and 3, which of course depends on your distro. And then we have a graphical target for run level 5. And finally, a reboot target for run level 6. So let's go ahead and back out of this. And if we wanted to see our default target, all you need to do is run systemctl get default. And we see that our default target is the multi-user target. And to change the default target, we can run systemctl set default and then just specify the target that we'd like to set as the default. So go ahead and use the graphical target. Now with this one, we can also just call it graphical, or we can end in the .target. Either way, it's going to assume target for this command. So if we kick that off, we see that the old symlink for the default target gets removed, and a symlink for default target gets linked to the graphical target. And to change it back to multi-user, all we have to do is put in multi-user. And we see that the symlink gets recreated. Now all that does is set the default target. So if we were to restart after we change the default, it's going to start that target. But if we wanted to change the current target, we'll need to use the systemctl isolate command, which is where that allow isolate directive comes in. And let's go ahead and switch to the graphical target. Now, there's not really a great way to show what target is currently running, and that's probably because it's going to be the default unless you've changed it. But for the moment, the run level command, which is deprecated, still currently works. And we see that our previous run level, and I use run level in quotes here because it's really not a run level, it's actually a target, was 3. And that our new run level, again in quotes, is going to be 5, which is our graphical target. And with that, we're going to finish up our lesson on systemd services and targets. So let's go ahead and mark it complete, and we can move on to the next.